Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready, the 7 Keys to Connecting. Before we get going with today's event, I will do the land acknowledgement, take care of some housekeeping, and tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. So, for the land acknowledgement, the County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano Keech, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respects to their elders, descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians Keech Nation, San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and the San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission website at lanaic.lacounty.gov. And I'm going to post that in the chat as well. All right, now let's get to the housekeeping portion of the program. If you can hear me and see the slide up on the screen, then you are good to go. However, if you're having trouble hearing or seeing me or seeing the slide on the screen, do let me know in the chat and I'll do my best to assist. If you'd like to listen to this presentation on the phone, you can do that by calling 1-669-900-6833 and using the access code 856-1780-2366 and the passcode 123123. Now, you may have noticed that the mics and video for attendees of the program have been disabled. That's so that everyone can focus on our presenter for the day. We do, however, welcome your questions and comments. If you have comments or you want to respond to a poll from the presenter, you can paste your responses in the chat. That's the button with the single speech bubble. And if you have questions at any time during the presentation, please put them in the Q&A box. That's the one with the two little speech bubbles. And the distinction is that in the Q&A box, it's easy for me to see all of the questions. Whereas in the chat, if the chat moves, then the questions can easily get lost, and we don't want to miss your questions. All right, now I'd like to tell you about the Work Ready program. The Work Ready program started in December of 2020 with the purpose of helping people get a job, improve their work situation, or plan a more sustainable career path. We do that in two ways. One is we lend out laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots for a 6-week period. So you check it out just like a book, only longer for 6 weeks out of 27 library locations, breaking down one barrier to applying for jobs and getting online training. And two is we provide virtual events just like this one on a variety of work-related topics, from the basics like resumes, cover letters, interviews, to deep dives into various careers and other subjects that help you succeed at work. And you can see there's, I believe, now 100 videos, at least actually over 100, because some of them aren't even work ready. Some are just other work related videos on a work and career playlist. Take a look at that playlist, scroll all the way down. There might be something interesting to you or somebody you know. And if there is, please share it by all means. And of course, the Work Ready program is made possible due to funds provided by the American Rescue Plan. And next week, we also have a great event for you, and that is Work Ready Rethinking College on Tuesday, July 9th, 11 a.m. Discover alternatives to a 4-year degree with Karen Klein, award-winning LA Times journalist and author of the forthcoming book, Rethinking College. She'll introduce you to a broad range of exciting and well-paid career paths, no degree required. I'm going to post a link to that in the chat. That program is also absolutely free, and it'll be available on our YouTube channel if you can't make it. So register for the program, whether you can make it or not, and then you'll get a follow-up email with a link to the video. And if you're interested in more LA County Library programs, go to our website at lacountylibrary.org and hit the button at the top right-hand side of the screen that says events. Click that. You'll see all of our in-person or virtual events, all ages, all free. And if you're interested in just virtual events, hover over that little events link and you'll get a little drop down that says virtual programming. Click on that and you'll get all the Zoom events just like this one. Also for all ages, also absolutely free and available to you. All right, and now let's get going with today's program. Work Ready, the 7 keys to connecting. And I just want to say this is our 100th Work Ready programs. We started in December of 2020, and we have done now 100 live events. And so I doubly welcome you to number 100, and thank you for being here. And to present our 100th program, it is my pleasure to introduce Liz Mohler. Liz is an executive, career, and life coach. She has presented on soft skills and other career-related topics all over the United States and the world. Liz, I don't have you presented yet? All over the world. I'm not
Yep.
surprised. And has been one of our stalwart work-ready presenters and one of my favorite collaborators in helping LA County residents discover their career path and beyond. And today, Liz will be covering the 7 keys to connecting. And with that, Liz, the stage is yours.
Love it. Okay, so I will continue by sharing my screen so that you guys can get to know who I am. And I want to say thank you to Oleg for inviting me back. I was looking back at some records, and I have been coaching and presenting at the libraries for over 15 years. And I used to drive and get on a boat and go to Catalina and present these workshops and had so much fun. And then, of course, COVID hit, and I had probably 15 presentations just swept off my calendar because nobody was going into libraries at the beginning of COVID. And so now I'm excited to be back. And today's topic is one that is near and dear to my heart because it's all about connecting. And the importance of communications and the importance of connecting is because it's all about networking. And so to get a job, you have to know the 3 keys to networking, the 3 keys to communicating. And today I'll be giving at least one, if not many, many more Lizisms. So that adds up to 7. And I'm also going to give you the 7 best places to network. So 7 is like the magic number, but so is 3. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself a little bit more. My background, I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. So yes, that's me with the fried cheese curds and a cold beer. I went to undergrad in Madison, Wisconsin. My father was a professor, so I grew up in a college town. And then I went to Tucson, Arizona for graduate school and studied vocational evaluation, assessments, career counseling, loved it. Moved to Los Angeles, where I am based out of right now, and started my own coaching program. I went on to get certified by the International Coach Federation. And I've done everything from career coaching, inner city youth with AmeriCorps, to retirement coaching, to people that don't even know what they want to do, but they're ready to do more post real job. And I do a lot of consulting for senior executive women trying to get into the C-suite, which is kind of a play on words: chief financial officer, chief executive officer, chief operating officer, chief. And so Chief is an online program that I facilitate with the chief women who are trying to break through that glass ceiling and either get into the C-suite or stay there. I also work a lot with Airport Marine Counseling Center because that's a nonprofit that I've been supporting for over 20 years. And I've launched a couple kids. I have one son who's an artist, went through the design media art program at UCLA and works in New York City. The other one followed his passion and went to play lacrosse at Boston, and he's now working in Los Angeles. So that's another sweet spot of mine, is launching these young adults. So that's a little bit about who I am. But I'm glad to see all of you here. And you could be watching Netflix, or you could be networking, and you chose to be here. So the first thing I'd love for you to do is go ahead and put in the chat the kind of work you want to do, just for the fun of it. Why do you want to network? Where do you want to get employed? What do you want to do next? Hopefully some of you saw my post on my LinkedIn. So maybe you're already working, but you're at a plateau and you're kind of wondering what's next. What's that upward mobility? And networking is very, very important for those that are working for upward mobility, as much as it is networking to get a job if you don't have a job. You should always be networking. So we're going to kind of jump in, and the basic agenda that I've put together is to answer some basics. What is networking? Why is it important? Where do we go to network? Who do we network with? And then that all challenging, well, what do I say? And what do I ask? So we're going to jump right in, because networking is sort of a big term. What does it encompass? Well, there's networking. We think about it as a business event. We think about meeting total strangers and coming up with our elevator pitch, which I'm going to give you today, an outline, so you have an elevator pitch. But networking has also transitioned to this. We are networking. We all have the ability to jump on the chat and see other, well, you can't see other people. Oleg and I can see who's showing up, because we want to respect some privacy to people in the audience. But this is the new norm. The new norm is you may not have to leave your house to network. You can just log on and you can actually connect with people. You can find their information on Google. You can reach out and schedule a phone call. And some of us are getting out of the house. We are meeting people in person. And I have a special surprise at the end where we can do some IRL, in real life networking.
Hey, Liz. So,
Yes.
speaking of new networking, some of the folks have responded to your prompt at the very beginning. What are people looking to get into? And we've had some nice responses in the chat here. So, we've got banking, front-end development. Somebody wants to be an HR manager, something to do with training, retailer food industry, while working on skills to get a receptionist job. So, moving to a different career. So I got a few career pivots here: environmental nonprofit organization, sustainability consultant, but quite a few outreach work for the community. And then there's somebody was interested in learning how to network with people internationally.
Ooh, love that one. Yeah, that's on my list as well, because I'm going to be doing some traveling in the fall. So how do I connect with people that are halfway around the world? Because I
Mhm.
might go visit them. Love that. And I really do want to point out that this is a challenge for everyone at every level. I have senior executives who come to me and they're like, I don't know what to say to people that I've never met before. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're a lawyer. You're on a board of directors. You run 35 people in your organization, or you supervise 300 people, and yet you're stuck with networking. And they're like, yeah. So I'm hoping that out of today, you will take away at least one new nugget of information. So I will even say, take a moment and go get a sheet of paper, go get a ballpoint pen. I purposely chose not to blur my video today so I could show you how important it is to take notes. One of the things I do as a private coach when clients come to me is I help them kind of figure out what's their goal, what's their vision, where is it that they want to go. And then we also address that mindset, that thought and voices in your head that say, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, or this isn't for me, or I'm not ready. And I say, well, let's hope that at the end of this 1 hour, we'll go till about 12:15 Pacific time, you will have a notebook with some ideas and some key takeaways of what you want to do. So not everything's going to apply to you, because this is a Lizism. There's no two people that are alike. There's no two jobs that are alike. So we all have to kind of ask ourselves, does this apply to me? What works for me? So I'll give you some generalizations, but I'm hoping these generalizations will work for recent college graduates, as well as they'll work for someone who's mid-career and trying to figure it out. And I always recommend take notes, so that you can pay it forward. Take notes so you can tell your kids. Have they boomeranged back home after college, or maybe they're recent grads? Share this information with them, learn with them, grow with them, because the world of work has changed. So I'm going to give you some pointers that are very 2024, even though I've been career coaching for over 20 years, things are a little different. So we know kind of a little bit about what networking is. It's simply connecting with people, but more importantly, there's some things that it's not. Networking is not pitching. Networking is not selling. Networking is not delivering a long speech, closing business on the spot. It's not hyper-focused on you. And be real careful that when you're networking, you're not using people to get to other people. It's not like you're calling somebody saying, hey, can you connect me with so-and-so? That's something I always warn my clients about, is that you don't want to perceive it as being negative. I'll stop sharing for a minute, and I'm going to just sort of look you in the eye, and I'm going to say the reason networking is so important is because if you're looking for a job, you have to imagine that on the other side, there's companies looking for good people. So if you're the boss, how far in advance do you think you know if you're going to need to hire people? Do you think you're going to know maybe a few days in advance, a couple weeks in advance, a couple months in advance? Maybe we can throw that in the chat, Oleg. How far in advance do you think that the boss knows that they need to hire more people?
Somebody said months in advance.
Yeah,
Months.
months,
A
months.
couple of people said
Big-
months. See if
Yep.
anybody else has any other ideas or feedback.
Well, we've already gotten the right answers. So
Months.
really what I wanted to say is they're always looking. Good companies are always looking for good people. And so knowing that, they may not advertise that they're looking for those people, but they know who's getting ready to retire. They know who's not performing up to par. Companies, CEOs, businesses also know, hey, we're growing. We've got an influx of money. We need to staff up. So they will know early on. Where's the first place that they're going to look? If they know that somebody's leaving one department, where's the first place that they're going to look in order to fill in that position in that department? Internally. Somebody's just all over this. I love it. Hiring from within. And if you were to think about it, and you were to think about how did you get your last job? Or let me back it up. Think back to your very first job. How did you get your first job? I would reckon to guess that some of you are even forgetting that maybe your first job was from your family. If you're good parents and your parents were good parents, maybe they gave you chores. There's a great research study out that says that children are more successful if they were given chores as young adults, as young kids. Start them young, set the table, take out the trash, feed the dog. Your first boss was probably your mom or dad. And then it became family and friends, and then referral. And sometimes I'll even challenge you to walk through your resume and see what that pattern was. Who helped you get that job? Because nobody gets a job alone. And so what's important to understand is if you're the boss, the first place you're going to look is internally. Can I market? Can I promote from within? So as an employee, if you're working at a company, you may want to meet other people in other departments and other divisions and see where their growth is. It's not unusual for me to be called in for an outplacement project, which is basically companies paying me when they're laying somebody off. And they're downsizing and laying off in one department, but they're hiring and staffing up in another. So companies do very interesting things as they try to adapt to where the marketplace is and where their customers and clients are. So knowing that that the bosses are going to hire from within, if they can't hire from within, that's when they may go out into the world. And so I'll share sort of an old analysis of this, is basically taking a look at how people get hired or where things are published. And we talk about the green is the hidden job market. 75 and maybe even higher percentage of jobs are never published. They're not advertised. Because businesses, two things about businesses, companies want to save money or make money. And you know what? It's really, really expensive to post those jobs. It's not just expensive because it might cost them $20 or $50 to put it on LinkedIn or to put it on an Indeed or a website. Think about just the posting money alone. That's significant. But then think about the time and energy, and I know somebody in the chat wants to get into human resources. The time and energy for the decision maker, the hiring manager, to talk to the HR person, to talk to the marketing person, to talk to the copywriter, to print it, to put it together, to get that job description done. That's a lot of time and money at a C-suite level that companies have to take into consideration as they're trying to launch a job search. And then put on top of that the time and the money when they post that job and they get hundreds of applications and they have to read hundreds of resumes and they sort through it. Now they're getting faster because they're using AI. They're doing searches. And so they're going through the bots. Problem is, you're more likely to get weeded out. The best way to get your resume looked at is to network and get it on the top of the pile. Some companies won't even interview you unless you have a connection, unless you know somebody there. And I would bet on every application, somewhere on the application is a little question that says, how did you hear about this job? Or who do you know that works here? Or who recommended you? Or who referred you? And you don't want to leave that blank. You want to network so that that becomes important information for them to know you've got an inside connection. Because think about it. If their boss is looking to hire somebody and their best employee says, hey, I've got my best friend, I think they'd be great to come into this company. But then the boss says, I'm going to post this job and I've got a qualified candidate. Who's the boss going to hire? The qualified candidate or the boss's best client's best friend? Who are they going to hire? The best friend or the applicant online? The best friend. Even if the applicant online has more education, who are they going to hire? The best friend. Who are they going to hire if that person online has a better education and more work experience? The best friend. That's their best employee, and their best employee says, hey, this is my best friend. I highly recommend that hidden job market. That person's going to get hired, possibly because they don't want to have to go through that whole expense of posting it, producing it, putting it all out there. So the challenge is to figure this out and be ready to have the 3 keys to connection and that question, so tell me about yourself, is where we're going to go next. So the important thing to understand is why people get the jobs that they apply to and how decisions are made. And I can tell you it's as simple as people getting to know each other. And so if they don't know you, they're not going to hire you. And the curiosity begins with you. When I'm coaching one-on-one, I kind of break it into 3 phases of career development. And the first phase is all about you and helping you figure out, well, what is it you already know? What is it that you already have experience or skills? And we're going to dig into this in a minute, because we want to know what you know before we send you out to figure out who do you know. But then I dig a little deeper, because it's not just what you know at the top. It's really, what do you like? You're job seekers, and yet you get to choose where you apply. And for many of my clients, they're like, oh, it's my choice where I go to work? And I go, yeah, because it's not just what you know and what you like, it's that you have to trust that you can do the job. Your confidence needs to be up in order for you to apply for that job. And so answering the question, so tell me about yourself, becomes the very first foundation of networking. And a lot of this is based on core values. So when I'm working with private clients, I use tools like the Vista cards, which is a nice acronym. I try to help you figure out what your core values are. That's the letter V. What are you interested in? That's the I. The I is the interest. But I'm also curious about what your skills are. And then I want to know what your personality traits are, so we can put a blueprint together, which is basically helping you answer the question, so tell me about yourself. So today we're going to dig in a little quickly, and I'm going to ask you to even just take a notebook and just jot down, what are some things that you know? What knowledge do you have? Maybe you've got knowledge of a foreign language because you were raised in a bilingual household. Maybe you have skills because you had to work for the family business. Maybe you're pretty good at cooking, or maybe you're pretty good at some paperwork or some computer skills. You studied something in high school, you studied something in college, you went to trade school, you've got a certificate or a diploma. All of that knowledge, that world of work knowledge, can really start you down a path of discovery of this is what I know how to do. Then I want you to dig a little deeper. What do you like to do? What are you going to get up in the morning for? What sort of interests are you excited about reading or studying? Maybe you've got some hobbies that are a side hustle. So even if you're not working, this might be one of my first Lizisms. I will tell my clients the Lizism is that it's easier to get a job if you have a job, even if that job is a side hustle or that job is a volunteer job, you're working at something. So what are you doing that you like to do? Because if you're doing what you like to do, it's likely you're going to be surrounded by like-minded people, people that also like to do that kind of work. And all those people that you volunteer with, all those people that you share a hobby with, all those people that share your interests, whether it's pickleball, whether it's travel, whatever that is, those people are in your network and they're in a position to be a conduit or a connection to somebody that might offer you a job. And it's also important to know that nobody's going to hire you unless they know you, but they're also not going to hire you if they don't like you. But most importantly, they're not going to hire you unless they trust you. And so we start with the trust being your core values of what's important to you, but they're also the personal traits. They're how you show up. So you have to earn employers' trust so that they'll hire you. There's another Lizism that's basically along the lines of hire for traits and personality and train for skill. If I trust you, I can train you. If I trust you, it doesn't matter if you have the skills for the job. I trust that you can learn. I trust that you can grow. I trust that we're going to go forward with that. So figuring out who trusts you and who do you trust and how can you show up is at the cornerstone of networking. That being said, hopefully I've given you a few, little food for thought here, because one of the most important things you're going to have to be ready to do when you go out networking is answering that question. Nice to meet you. So tell me about yourself. So here you are in a situation where maybe somebody doesn't know you and you want to help them get to know you. So I'm giving you a little bit of what we call an elevator pitch. And the important thing about this elevator pitch is that, yes, you can create the elevator pitch, but then you can also tweak it for the different audiences. But I always tell my clients, begin with something you're passionate about. Begin with something that's going to light you up when you talk about it. The reason you're at that event is because you're passionate about these events. But in addition to what you're interested in, fill the gap of what you're currently doing. What are you recently doing? So if you're not working, I would probably not say I'm recently looking for a job, because when you are networking and you say to people, I'm looking for a job, I need to get a job, I need some information about a job, I'm looking for a new career, I'm looking for a job, it kind of puts people back on their heels, because sometimes when we say I'm looking for a job, it makes us look desperate. And then the person we're networking with gets curious about, well, what's wrong with that person? Why are they not working? And unfortunately, the stigma of the unemployed is still that stigma. It's still out there. So to no fault of our own, I do a lot of outplacement. I have, Bank of Montreal, Bank of the West, Marriott Hotels. I would do a lot of outplacement. They did nothing wrong. The rug got pulled out from underneath them. But to say I'm unemployed, I'm not working, I need a job, diminishes what we want to focus on, which is what they're passionate about and the education and the work history and where they were. So it's a catch-24. We don't really want to be telling people we need a job because that looks desperate. We want to pivot in such a way that it comes across as more of a conversation, which is why at the end, we send people forward to our goals, our positions that we're curious about, what we might like some help with, or who we might like to help. So in the future, I would like more information about working at a bank, or more information about human resources, or more information going forward. So the networking is key, And sometimes we're networking with, as I said, people we've never met before. The other interesting thing that I like to point out when I'm coaching clients on networking is that we also need to have these conversations with the people that already know us and like us and trust us, because those people may not know where we were previously. They may be friends and family, but they don't know that we got a certificate while we were at home at COVID, or they may not know something that we're passionate about. And so there's so many people out there that we want to network with. It's important to ask ourselves, well, let's not assume that everybody in our network knows what we're passionate about or knows what we want to do in the future. And I do want to take a break and make sure that I tell Oleg, if people have questions about this initial part, go ahead and put them in the Q&A or put them in the chat so I can make this a little bit interactive, because as I said, I want you guys all to have a takeaway from this program. So I'll take a breather. Anybody have a question? I don't see the chat, so
No questions as of
okay.
yet.
Okay. Well, then I will keep going and leave time at the end for questions, because I know there's, oh my gosh, there's like over 100 people here. So we'll take questions as they come and we'll take them at the end. The thing about networking is that there's so many
Oh, Liz,
people.
there's one question here.
Yeah,
Is this the elevator pitch?
this is the elevator pitch. So you can
A
actually,
resounding yes.
yeah. And this is about enough time to, when you get in the elevator and there's a total stranger and they might ask you, so tell me about yourself. And you've got, 30 seconds till that elevator goes from the bottom floor to the top floor to tell them a little bit about who you are. This is the elevator pitch. And it's an elevator pitch because the assumption is this person really doesn't know you that well, but what you want to do is pique their curiosity and start a conversation.
So regarding the elevator pitch, somebody has asked, I would like to know if you have a big gap in the resume. How would you address that in your elevator speech?
Gaps in resumes are common. That you can have a gap in the resume because you were taking care of family members or raising children. The most important thing is to sort of be able to explain that. So being able to say, I took some time off because my significant other had cancer, or I took some time off because of ABC, but what I was doing was I was doing XYZ. And sometimes what you're doing during that time off can be very valuable. Maybe you started a company and it didn't work, or maybe you had a disability, and what did you learn from that disability? This is part of the curiosity of, I tell people, take baby steps and ask yourself, well, who's out there in the world that maybe I could help that could fill that gap? And if you're really just surviving, then you might have to talk a little bit about why now is the time to get back to work. How have you resolved some of those issues? How have you handled situations? And why is now a good time for you to get back to work? Are you ready
This
to
this
answer them?
answer actually it anticipated one of the other questions was how do you pivot when people ask what you do when you are unemployed?
Excellent question. And it's also so important because so much of our identity is caught up with, my name is so-and-so and I work at such and such. And if you're currently working and you're a senior executive, that can open doors. You tell somebody, I work at Facebook, I work at Google. They're like, oh, we'll listen because you're there. And then unfortunately, the minute you're not there, you start to kind of wonder, where am I? What's my point of view? So you can absolutely go back and let people know, previously I did ABC, and in the future, what I'd really like to do, and then lead them down that path of where you want to go. This is really important, to be as specific as possible. Don't just say, in the future, I'd like a job, or in the future, I'd like to work in human resources. Try to help them with, for example, and this is something I'd encourage everybody to write down, is, for example, ... And give yourself the time to really think, where's my dream job? What's my dream company? Because it's actually your responsibility to choose where you want to go, not your network. If you throw it out to the network's likely to say, oh, I have a friend who's hiring, they're a dog walker. Is that what you want to do? You said you needed a job. You said you liked animals, go walk dogs. And you might be thinking, well, no, what I really want to do is elephants in the rainforest. You're better off saying, I want to work with elephants in the rainforest. For example, I want to work in Kenya, Nairobi, or Patagonia, because people can latch into that. And then if they can't help you, they can think of who they know that can. So being in between jobs gives you an opportunity to reinvent yourself and set a new goal of where you want to go. Yeah.
Let's see. So I think that there are some questions here, but I think it might be better to save them towards the end of the presentation.
Exactly. Because there's millions and millions and millions of people to connect with out there in the world. And part of the challenge when I'm coaching individuals is helping them focus, helping them narrow and narrow and narrow the focus. And so we're going to do a couple different things. We're going to talk a little bit about who to network with, but we're also going to talk a little bit about where to network. So let me stop sharing and flip my slide to the next one. Hang on a second. Well, we'll go in order here, because the big view I like to begin with is I like to recommend that you network with who you already know, like, and trust. So this is the diagram that I created, and I wanted to help you understand the power of the people that are in your inner circle. So number one is called first degree connections. That's your friends, your neighbor, your coworker, your classmates, your family. Did I spell neighbor wrong? Doesn't look right. Anyway, that's the hot pink. Those are the hot pink people. So this is where you would put your references. And I always tell my clients, if you can make a top 10 list of people that know you and like you and trust you, who would be on that list? Who are going to be the people that'll vouch for you? Back in the olden days, we used to use reference letters. People would literally write a letter that says, I worked with so-and-so, and this is what their skills are, and I highly recommend them. Now, we're more likely to go on LinkedIn and just see who you're connected to. But you have the ability to curate your list, because then your list will know what it is you know, what it is you like, and what it is that you need them to trust you can do, because they're out in the community talking with their friends and classmates and coworkers. So this category of first degree connections is pretty broad. One of the tools I used to give out is a worksheet. And I know it's a little gray and a little fuzzy, but I want all of you to create your own little worksheet, because each of these categories should stimulate a name. So if I was to say to you, write down some of your friends, and then I was to dig in a little deeper and say, think about your friends from school, think about your friends from the neighborhood, think about your friends from childhood, think about your friends through your children, or your friends who live out of state. All of those people are in your network. Another category, to go a little deeper, is the relatives. You've got grandmothers, aunts, cousins, uncles. I love to tell a story about my husband, who's in the internet startup world, and one of his startups didn't make it, and he found himself unemployed. And we were at a family reunion, and we were talking with his family, and he was talking to his parents back on the East Coast about what he does as a startup guy. And 2 weeks later, I answer the phone, and it's Poppy Mohler, and he's just gotten off the tennis court, and he's been playing tennis with some childhood friends, parents, and it comes up that their daughter is living in Los Angeles, and Poppy's son is living in Los Angeles, and she's in the internet startup world, and my husband's in the internet startup world. And so the tennis dad said, oh, we should make sure that they know each other and that they're connected. And so I tell my husband, your dad called, and Dr. Smith's daughter, Susie Smith, is in Los Angeles. She has a startup. And my husband's response was, oh my gosh, I know Susie Smith. She lived down the block from me. I used to push her around on her bicycle. I know Susie Smith really well. I wonder what she's up to. And he Googled her, and sure enough, she's married, has a new name, living in Los Angeles, and has a startup company. So he reached out to her and said, hey, remember me from the bike rides around the block? And she said, yeah, what are you up to? And he said, this is what I like to do. This is what I know how to do. They had lunch, and she hired him on a project because she trusts him from childhood. But that connection never would have happened if Poppy hadn't been talking to his tennis buddy, who talked to his daughter, who said, talk to the son, and the connection was made. So you never know who knows someone to connect you to. And I call that the FOF, the friends of the friends. And then the friends of the friends of the friends. So when you go to a party, or you go to a family reunion, or you go anywhere in the world, and you're talking about what you want to do, even if the people you're talking to don't know how to help you, they don't understand, who do they know? And each of those people might know 3 people. So I put 3 little yellows, and then those 3 people know 3 people. And then those 3 people know 3 people. So you potentially could have 100 people who know what you know what you like, and know what you want to do, and have heard your elevator pitch. And then when they're out in the world, they have the potential to connect you and to go back. That's how networking works. And on LinkedIn, they've actually set it for you. If you, and this is where I coach my clients to do what I call reverse engineering. You get to pick out an amazing company that you want to work at. You might even choose 3. I have a magic rule of 3. If you could pick out amazing company number 1, amazing company number 2, and amazing company number 3. Let's use Amazon. Amazon is an amazing company. Google's an amazing company, and Netflix. So those are your 3 dream companies. Now we reverse engineer it. The curiosity is, who do I know at Amazon? Who do I know at Netflix? Who do I know at these other companies? And if I was to say to you, okay, maybe you go on LinkedIn and you find somebody that's working in the shipping and receiving at Amazon, but you want to work in marketing at Amazon. Do you think it would be worthwhile for you to network with the person at shipping and receiving if you want to be in marketing? Kind of a trick question. But the answer is yes. If they're on the inside, then they're on the inside. They know what it's like to interview at Amazon. They know what it's like to get hired at Amazon. They understand the pay structure. Even if they're at shipping and receiving and you want marketing, there's a chance that that shipping and receiving person talked to someone in HR, who talked to someone else in HR, who manages marketing. So you could find a connection and get some really valuable information. And so you want to be talking to everybody. It's kind of like when I'm doing interview coaching, and I coach my clients who are going into an interview, and I coach them, be on your toes. When you walk in the door, that front receptionist, that gatekeeper, that security guard, whoever's there in the front is the connection to the person behind the desk. How you treat that person at the front receptionist, that's going to carry through. There's a great study out that asked CEOs, do you solicit the opinion of your front receptionist on who you're going to hire? And it was like 85%. 85% of the CEOs wanted to know, the front receptionist, what did you think of that candidate who walked in the door? How did they treat you? Because how they treat you is how they'll treat our clients. How they behave to you, they don't know who you are or your level, except you're sitting at the front receptionist desk. I'm at the CEO desk. How do those people communicate, and what's the connection? Can make or break during an interview. So this, I think, is almost more important than the where to interview. It's the who. So if you're to think about people that you know other people, the power of your connections, and this is something so many people forget, is they get embarrassed, they get shy. I don't want to tell people I'm unemployed. I don't want to tell people I got laid off, and they hide in isolation. When in reality, people are out there, and human nature is that they want to help. So you're depriving them of an opportunity to help if you don't tell them who you are and what's going on and where you want to go. So I always say, let's be clear about the people in that inner circle and the power of that. That being said, there are 7 places to network. And Oleg said, you can come up with 7. And I said, piece of cake. I'm going to come up with 7. If you're in transition, those career fairs that are sponsored where you can, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. You go to a career fair and there's table upon table upon table upon table, and you can walk around and go, police department, retail, where do I want to go? And who's putting on a career fair? Because while you're at that career fair, I always recommend you network out of curiosity. and not out of desperation. So you want to do your homework in advance, get the list of the companies that are going to be at that career fair. Go online, read the job descriptions, choose 2 or 3 that you're most interested in, and then go meet those people and figure out what exactly it is they're looking for so that you can do some due diligence before you show up at that career fair. Second one is online. This is an obvious one, places to network. I've talked about LinkedIn and connecting with people and following up. One of the nice things about connecting on LinkedIn is you can put a little message. So you can say, hey, great to meet you. You were in the Zoom call I was on. I saw your profile, thought I would like to connect. Don't just connect, follow them, comment, like, share, get some networking conversations going. I know a lot of people in their profession, this is absolutely where they need to focus their time and energy, especially those of you that are trying to do international stuff. You may not have the luxury of grabbing a cup of coffee with them. Conferences are key, especially if you're currently working. Offer and volunteer to go to a conference. Maybe if you're working, but you're looking for your next step up, you may want to be considered a subject matter expert or a SME. So you may need to look outside for conferences that you can present at, conferences that you can put a proposal in so that you can be recognized. Because once you're up on that stage, being part of the presentation, your network grows, not just with the people on the stage, but the people that are watching you. So conferences are key. Associations. There's an association for everything. I used to be very, very active in the International Career Development Association. And then I got very active in the National Speakers Association. And then I got very active in the Association of Talent Development. And then I got active in the Association of the International Coach Federation. And now I'm very active in associations that sort of pull at my heartstrings. So think about not just your job associations, but where else could you find a good association to learn and give back to your community? And some associations, if you tell them, I'm between jobs, can I volunteer? Can you waive the membership? Can I have a student rate? They will jump at the opportunity to say, yes, we'd love to have you and your help, whether you're an accountant, help with bookkeeping, whether you're customer service, help with registration. But being helpful leads to this fourth one, volunteering. I have a lot of respect for anybody that says, I will offer to volunteer. And you choose. You can say I'm available only on Saturdays, or you can say, you know what, I'm available Monday through Friday until I get a job. But volunteering is like looking for a job. Be selective. Think about what your skills are, what your interest is, what you're passionate about. Where do you want to volunteer? Who's out there in the world that you can help? If you sort of kind of think you want to work in a school district, maybe volunteer to help with a teacher. If you kind of sort of think you want to work in banking, maybe volunteer to work for an organization that has a fiduciary responsibility. You know, if you've got a church or a synagogue or someplace that you can do some volunteering where you can handle money, other people are going to see your skill set shine, and you're going to learn new skills. Because by volunteering, they may require that you understand some sort of accounting software. So learning on the job can be volunteering. Chambers of commerce are all about growing businesses. So getting a pulse on networking at a chamber mixer, that's the business they're in. And so companies will join chambers of commerce to grow their business and to network with each other. And so all of these constitute any social gathering. And so one of the things I coach my clients on is get out of the house, see where you can go, where you can meet people and tell them who you are and have a conversation. And I was going to do a little survey to see which of these you like the best, but we're going to get short on time. So I don't want to do the survey, but I want you to lean into your strengths. If the thought of an online platform and social media is just foreign to you, skip that. If you can't think of any professional events, or you maybe you do want to reconnect with your alumni organization. Maybe you do want to reach out not just to your college, but maybe your high school, and see what's going on with your alumni group, because that's something where, especially if it's an affinity group, like you went to law school, med school, a specific trade or tech school, where are those graduates now? Because if they did the same program, they're networked in to where you might want to go. So you get to choose where you hang out. And you can start with what's easiest for you. I always tell people, I want you to lean into your strengths. So if you've got a nice group of people that you go hiking with, you see them all the time, push yourself out of your comfort zone and say to them, hey, you know what? I'd love to tell you a little bit more about who I am and what it is I'm looking for, because you're part of my network. And if they see you in a social setting and they get to know you and like you and trust you in a social setting, they're probably going to be a pretty good reference to a connection to a connection to some other opportunity. And this is my Lizism. There's no such thing as luck. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So you do need to set goals on where am I going to network? What am I going to do to reach out to the people that I want to talk to? So I will pause there. Oleg, have you got any questions or should I keep on going?
We do have a few questions, so I mean, I think now would be a good time as any to cover some of these questions. So the first question is, what are good places to look for volunteer opportunities?
Oh, I love this question. There is a website called volunteermatch.com. And if you're in the city of Los Angeles, I think that the volunteer centers that are, online is a starting point. And anybody, I mean, I think there's over 100 people on, oh my gosh, we're over 200 people on this call. So 200 people calling from anywhere. Where to volunteer is a great question. And I will tell you my volunteer story. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I was coaching a private client and I was suggesting that she get active in her community and volunteer. And she asked me, where do I volunteer? And I was like, I just moved to LA. I'm new here. I'm from Wisconsin. I don't have time to volunteer. I have a full-time job. I don't have time. And then I started thinking about it and I thought, I really do need to practice what I preach. So back in the day, I was living in Venice Beach, and I found there was a volunteer center and I went to it, and a little old lady was sitting there with a shoebox and 3x5 note cards. So now I'm dating myself. I've been in LA for 30 years. I've been career coaching for 30 years. This lady sat me down and she said, oh, I'm so glad you're here to volunteer. What would you like to do? And I said, well, I don't know. I have a full-time job, but I don't know anybody in LA. I think I'd like to meet some people. And she said, oh, well, we've got a lot of volunteer opportunities. How about animals? Would you like to work at an animal shelter? Would you like to work at a rabbit shelter? And I was like, animals? No, I'm not that interested in animals. And she said, okay, how about cleaning the beach? Would you like to go work for Heal the Bay? Would you like to work at the beach? And I thought to myself, well, I'm not a beachy kind of person. And she said, that's okay. How about children? Would you like to work with children? And at the time I didn't have children. And I thought, no, I don't really want to deal with children. It didn't take long for me to figure out she's going to go through the alphabet. A, animals, B, beach, C, children. So it was really up to me to decide, where do I want to spend my time? Where do I want to spend my energy? Who's out there in the world that I want to help? And the more I broke down and took myself through my whole Vista program, what are my core values? My value was meeting people and having fun. My interest was in, at the time, meeting movie stars and being in Hollywood. And my skills were talking and training and presenting. And my trade is to get out there. So once I wrapped my head around that and I was able to communicate my elevator pitch to this volunteer coordinator, she said to me, I've got the perfect opportunity for you. The American Red Cross always needs trainers. They're always doing fundraisers. They have a big gala coming up. They need somebody to call movie stars and invite them to the gala. And they would love to have you help put on this fun event. So volunteering is it's not up to them where you volunteer, them being other people. It's up to you. Take the time to figure out, where do I want to go and who's out there that I can help. So I
We
hope that
had a response in the chat as well. It says, just contact the place you're interested in directly.
absolutely, absolutely.
So
Yeah.
if you see somebody doing something, or an organization at a resource fair or something, doing something that you like, call them or come up to the person saying, hey, how do I do what you're doing?
Yeah. And do you need any help?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. How can I help?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So next question is, what is your advice on networking as a startup business? Any resources you can suggest to meet people online or in person? I see that,
Oh,
they're on the screen.
yeah. The startup businesses are fun. And it kind of depends on what your startup business is. I recently spoke at Upfront Ventures, which was a VC firm that funds startups. So I was talking to founders about this exact conversation, their core values and how they present as leaders, and then how do they connect? How do they network? One of my most important tips for founders and startups is follow the money, but also reverse engineer it. Where would you go if you needed help solving this problem? Where are your customers hanging out? In other words, if you're with a startup incubator in the medical space, you may ask yourself, well, where would I go if I was a doctor who needed this medical intervention or knowledge? And you almost want to reverse engineer and ask yourself, well, where are those people? And then network where they are. And so that's going to be unique depending on what that startup is. But incubators, startups, tech, Crunchbase, I have a whole lot of resources because I love helping people with startups. That's one of my passions is how do we start something and make it grow?
So we have a question here that's related to career pivots. What if you have a background in a particular field, but you would like to transition into a career that reflects your hobby and interests?
That is another passion of mine. That I think is a nice segue to what to ask when networking.
There
And
we go.
so I have this great acronym because you're in a transition phase of, and a lot of my clients are like this. They come to me and they're like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I don't know where I want to be. It's a liminal space. They're in a hallway. This door's closed, but they want something more meaningful. They're at a place in life where they want a legacy. They want to know what's behind the door. And so what I'll say is take some time to do a personal inventory, find a coach or a accountability buddy to help pull out of you what's really what I call it the $1 million question. So you can all write this down. The $1 million question. What exactly are you looking for? And allow yourself to dream. Because once you put it on paper, what exactly are you looking for? And go back to that tagline I gave you before, dot, dot, dot. What I really mean to say is, and go deeper and deeper and deeper, so that you actually have a goal that you can start to talk about. Because then you can plan your networking around who might know something about this, who's out there in the world that I can connect with, and I can catch some air. So this is a fun acronym because I want to make networking as simple as possible. So it's all about figuring out, number one, how do I make a really, really good first impression when I'm reaching out to talk to somebody in my network? And the best way to make a really, really good first impression when you're networking is number one, ask for advice. Set the stage with respect to the reason I'm calling, the reason I'm reaching out. I value your opinion. I value your knowledge. I saw on LinkedIn that you did this. I read about your company. I know you're working here. I really value your advice. And I'll give you a moment to think about it for yourself. Think about if you've ever been in a position where somebody's come to you and said, hey, I could use some advice. I know that you've had a 5-year career, 20-year career in this, or I really value some advice. I know you've raised a lot of kids, or I value your advice. I know that you're working at this company. How does that make you feel when someone comes to you and says, I value your opinion and I'd like to get your advice? Hopefully you have a memory of, wow, this makes me feel really good. This person values my opinion. They think highly enough about me and they want my advice. I feel good about that. The flip side is, what are your thoughts about somebody who asks for advice? And maybe we can put this in the chat. What do you think about the person who calls you up and says, hey, have you got a few minutes? I'd love your advice. How would you describe that person? Is anybody adding anything to the chat that, like, how would you think about a person who goes out of their way and says, I need some advice. I value your opinion.
Somebody wrote humble, lost, uh, and then my first thought was actually gutsy. because the person's like, they don't know something, they're reaching out sometimes to a stranger. Then somebody put generally positive. Another person put willing to learn, teachable, curious, and active learner.
Yeah. Yeah. All of all of the above. The first couple I was a
Courageous.
little, yeah, the first couple I was a little concerned about. That you have to have a mindset shift. You have to have a mindset shift that goes to those last 6 or 8 comments that came up. You have to say, you know what, if somebody's going to be that courageous and that ability to, that they're going to actually have the ability to be an active learner, willing to learn, generally positive, they're not humble and lost coming to you. They're saying, I value your opinion and I'd like some advice. And that person automatically, you've elevated them to a pedestal because you've asked for their advice, but they're looking at you going, that's pretty brave. That person is stepping out of their comfort zone and they're asking me my opinion and advice. Number 2 is that you have to be ready to share some information. But before you share information, I always say it's a two-way street. Do your homework and get some information. Before you call somebody up to network and ask them about their job, have some information ready. Tell them what you already know about the company or the industry or what you want to explore. You have this much information, but you value their advice. And beyond that, it's really all about the number 3. As you're having this conversation, you're getting advice, sharing information. They may not have an answer, but they might have a resource, a book to read, a website, a link. Many of the questions in the Q&A, you're saying, well, where should I go to do this? That might be what you ask your person to give you. The person you're networking with has resources, they have referrals, and then of course the golden ticket is the recommendation. And if you're writing this down, make sure that these 3 keys are done in order. A lot of people make the mistake of reaching out to a connection and saying, hey, can you recommend me to your boss? Can you forward my resume? You're using that person. What you need to do is stop using them and value them. I value your opinion. I value your advice. I'd really like to talk with you about this. The other reason it's the 3 is that I recommend you talk to 3 people. And if you've got someone who's pretty high up in an organization, somebody who's moderate and somebody who's new, I might even reverse engineer and talk to the new person first, get their advice, their information, their resources, because you may say to them, I think I kind of want to start my own company. This is some information. I used to run this company. I used to do this. And that first person you talk to might say, no, you're never going to make it. You don't know anything about finance and whatever, but you should call the SBA or you should contact SCORE. And you do that homework, then you call the second person, you've got a little more information and you're asking for a little more advice. And the second person might say, well, sounds like maybe you're on the right track. Here's my resources, here's my referrals. So that by the time you talk to the third person, you've got much more information, much more referrals and resources. And that third person might be the third one that says, yes, I trust you can do this. I believe in you. And here are my referrals and recommendations and resources. So don't stop talking to people because one person says no. Find the 3 people you can catch air with because they're the ones that are going to be really there to support you. And that's what we want you to do, is find the people that are going to see you as courageous and willing to learn, and not the people that see you as lost and humble and not, it's like you don't want to go to them and be like, I don't really know what I'm doing. You want to go to them saying, here's what I've already tried, but I could use some help. And I'm willing to help you if you can help me. It's a tricky flip because it's a mindset shift. Yeah. This, I think, is an important one. Dale Carnegie's great. I think he's is he the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? I'm going to toss that back to
No,
Ola.
he's the How to Win Friends and Influence People.
That's the right one.
Stephen
Absolutely.
Covey is the 7 Habits of and that both are great.
They are great. They are great because you've got to be interested rather than interesting. So networking becomes a two-way street when you're interested in them and how you can help them. And you're not just spilling it all about you. Kind of goes back to what I was saying, what networking is not. But it does take practice. It's a conscious effort. And so I'm looking at the clock. I realize it's already after 12. So I want to make sure that you've got a little bit of a takeaway and lean into your strengths and ask yourself, what's one action that I can take? Or who are 3 people that I can connect to catch some air? And think about like all the different people in your categories. Sometimes I say things like, you know, your church or your synagogue, your priest knows, or your rabbi, they know everybody in the congregation. They know who else is out there that might need some support. The people that you see every day, the person at your dog walking, or your butcher, or your pharmacist, or your doctor, your dentist. Does your doctor or your dentist, do they want you to have a job? Yes, because if you have a job, you have the money to come see them. So people actually, human nature is we want to help. People love to give advice. It makes them feel good. So part of your homework this week is, who do you want to help feel good? Who do you want to compliment? Who do you want to shine? Start with, you know, some old coworkers that you haven't connected with in a long time, or somebody from your previous job. I have lots of clients who get hired by previous jobs because they call them up and they say, hey, I knew the job, I worked the job, and then I graduated and I went on and did other things. Do you need any help now? So think about who you can reach out to. And if you're stumbling, I have an opportunity coming up to catch some air. This is Playa del Rey. So if you're based in Los Angeles, if you're close to Playa del Rey, I am hosting a worldwide wander walk shop. And there is a QR code at the bottom, and you can kind of take a snapshot of that and give you lots and lots of information. Saturday morning, 9 a.m. It's free. It's open to everybody. If you don't live in Los Angeles, you live somewhere around the world, you can go on the website and they do worldwide wanders. I've done one in London, I've done one in Washington, D.C., and there's an online version. So I highly, highly recommend you take a look at this and have some fun with it. I will also offer to anybody, that there's 200 of you on the call, so I can't offer it to everybody. But if Oleg's going to send out an evaluation, and if you'd like to connect with me on LinkedIn, is a great place to connect with me, or send me an email and let me know you'd like some coaching. You're stuck, your answer didn't get answered, and you have a quick question for me, and I will choose 3 people that I can schedule some time with in the next week or so to hop on a Zoom call and see if I can help you. So if you're interested in just following up, because I know we've probably got maybe 5 minutes for questions, and then we're going to run out of time, but would love to see you on a Saturday in Playa del Rey, or have you reach out to connect with me. So I will stop sharing and go back to Oleg and see if there's any other questions in the Q&A or in the chat as we wrap up.
Sure. So we do have some questions, and let's see if how many of them we can get through before we have to conclude today. So the first question is, I'm someone who has worked for himself, but now wants to get a job working for a company, but I'm older and can't seem to get an interview.
Ooh, okay. Ageism is alive and well. That is a problem. So I would say lean into the positives, the wisdom, the fact that you owned your own company, the fact that you probably have a very well-rounded breadth of knowledge, and then you get to choose who is it that deserves to have your time and attention. And you may want to go to them and offer to listen, not to what you have to offer, but what's keeping them up at night. Where are they struggling? Where do they need some support? So that you can then lean in to being a solution to a problem that they don't even know they have, and they're not even aware that you want to do it. And then you can have that conversation about your availability. You may not want to work 60 hours a week anymore. You may just want to give them 20 hours a week. You may want to take it on as a project. So you can kind of, do this in baby steps. But the flip side is to make sure you understand what their needs are as you're trying to, I don't think traditionally applying online is the least effective way. It's also the highest way to get rejected, because you're more likely to get taken out for not having the right keywords or the right search. So you're right, you may not get an interview if you're just applying online.
Thanks, Liz. And so this next question came in when you had the slide up with all the little circles, the networking circles. And it said, this is sounding like a MLM or a multi-level marketing thing. How do we initiate these conversations without coming off as predatory?
Okay. Networking is not it's not a multi-level marketing, because you're not using people to get to other people. You're building trust. You're getting to know them, they're getting to know you. you're starting to like them. You know, it's a two-way street, and you may even want to offer to help them with something. So don't think about it as multi-level and I'm going to use them. Think about it on the flip side of how can I get connected with somebody who can give me some advice and some information. And maybe you have to ask yourself, how can I support them? Maybe you're going to, you know, buy them a cup of coffee, volunteer to walk their dog or babysit their kids. You know that you're going to take some time and some energy, but it's kind of like mentoring. You want to make it an even playing field. So what can you do to support them while they're supporting you?
Yeah, I think what the difference is between multi-level marketing and networking conversations, just, hobnobbing with people, just making, keeping relationships warm, is that multi-level marketing often comes across, not always, but sometimes comes across as tone deaf, where people kind of sidle up to you and go, "Hey, hello," and a lot of emojis and stuff. And they're like, "You want to buy some essential oils?" Like, why do you think I want to buy some essential oils? I don't, did I make it? Did I, it ends up being kind of weird. Whereas networking conversations don't need to come off that way because you're not trying to sell anything. Like you said, Liz, you may be even trying to help.
Absolutely. That I always tell people, if you're job hunting, write the word job and then put an X through it because it makes you come across desperate, and then draw a heart and write the word help and flip the mindset of I'm here to help. I'm not looking for a job. I'm not badgering
Mhm.
you. I'm here to help you. So what are your concerns? What are your issues? What do you keeps you up at night? How can I help you? Here's where I can maybe help. Yeah.
The next question is, can you repeat the answer about how to pivot when people ask what you're doing, and now if you're in a transition or rebuilding? So this person who's asking the question is that they were a performer and a writer in a different place, and now have come to Los Angeles and are kind of transitioning, from maybe being performer to a writer to something else. So how would you address that in an elevator speech or when you're talking to people at a networking event?
You know, I think that there's something about being able to say, I'm reinventing myself. You know, I am really curious is a great word. That was my word of the year last year. So I was leaning into curiosity. And I think that the more curious you are, the more interesting and excited you're going to get about what you're talking about. And so it's a little bit about figuring out what you're passionate about and then finding those like-minded people so that they get excited about your goal and your vision. And they see that you're willing to work hard to achieve that vision and that goal. And they get kind of swept up. And then it gets to be exciting. And some people are not going to be the right people to network with. And you're going to very quickly be like, okay, you know, they're not giving me a positive. There's how many people did we say in that flight above New York City? Millions of people to reach out to. So you do kind of have to have a thick skin when you're job hunting.
And
Yeah.
can you share what VISTA stands for?
Sure. It is values, interests, skills, and traits. And it's what I use with my private clients. So Vista, and there's some great resources. There's resources online, and I know Strengths Finder, Strengths Quest,
Mhm.
some values activities. If somebody's very, very interested in that, I can send them the values sheet because Oleg, you and I did a values workshop.
Mhm.
So they can go
Yep.
into the library, and the values are the cornerstone and the foundation when I work with clients. Because my biggest curiosity is it's hard to figure this out on your own, but it helps to have someone like me kind of pull it out of you so that you really do start saying yes to some things and no to some things so that you can focus.
And we also did a previous Work Ready program on assessments. I think
Yes.
we did with Jennifer Rossotti.
Yes. Yep.
All right, we're almost done with the question. We have two more questions left here. All this networking increases vulnerability to fraud. How do you avoid being a victim to fraud or crime?
Oh my goodness. Yes. I unfortunately know that all too well because I have family members that have fallen victim to fraud. Be curious. Really kind of heighten your curiosity. If it looks fishy, if it smells fishy, it's fishy. So be very, very tuned into the fact that, especially if you're at home and you want to be productive and you want to apply for jobs and you spend hours and hours filling out applications and submitting information, when they call you up and say, oh, you're hired, give us your social security number, red flag. So be curious, Google the companies, check the emails that they're coming from, Go on the inside. Remember how I showed that dream company, that awesome company at the bottom? If you're getting close to looking into a job and you feel like it's fraud, Google it. Is this company fraud? Is this a multi-level marketing? And let Swoops or let some of the other internet sites help you figure out that it's not what it appears to be. And read your employment contracts. Ask somebody to read it with you. Look, go get a second set of eyes. That's possibly where your reference list can be your best network, is that you want these references to know you value their opinions, even if they're just proofreading a resume, proofreading a cover letter, or they're a sounding board. As you have a funny feeling about something, don't keep it to yourself and make those mistakes.
What are your thoughts about reaching out to people on LinkedIn, for example, that you have no connection with, but they work at the company or industry you want to be in?
I would say try to make it a second or a third degree connection and try to talk to the person that's connected to see if they really are connected so that it's not a cold email. You also could follow people and comment and like and share their posts and sort of establish a relationship that way before reaching out. And then when you do reach out, you might even want to reach out on LinkedIn with, hey, I saw this article and I thought of you. I always am a little bit, I pull my clients back from being too desperate. They want to reach out on LinkedIn and say things like, hey, I see that your company's hiring and I'd like to know about the job because here's my resume. They're not as like, that's like a dead end. There's no reason for them to call you back.
Yeah, it's like you're immediately asking for a favor from a stranger. Imagine coming up to somebody in the street or walking out of their office and going, "Hey buddy, here's my resume. Can you help me get hired?" Like, who are you?
Right. Right.
But if you establish, kind of warm up the relationship before that,
Yeah.
like you said, commenting on things and, you know, getting a little bit more information or, not asking for something right away, it comes across as more friendly.
And that's really what networking is it's friendly. It's
Mhm.
friendly and it's helpful. And if you shift your mindset and realize, I need to be authentically who I am, I need to be in a position of authenticity, then you're going to be that phase. And I think there was a comment, I've now got the chat open. Your core values, your interests, your skills, and your traits, that's what you have to get figured out before you go out networking. Because when you're out networking, inevitably, someone will ask you, so tell me about yourself. Who are you? What are your interests and what are your skills? So time and energy to figure out the vista, the view of who you are has to happen before the networking can be successful.
What does the A stand for?
Assessment.
Assessment. Oh, I see. I'm going to post it in the chats because people are asking. And
Yeah.
a few people asked where they can get the values, the worksheet for Vista.
That's on I think that Oleg, you and I did that one on one of the videos that was about
Is that the values
core
one?
values. Core
Yeah,
values.
I'll post a link to that video in the follow-up email.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Yeah, because this is kind of phase two. Actually, this is actually phase three, because phase one is who are you? What do you really want to do? What's your legacy in the world? What's your next meaningful transformation? What is it you want to do? Phase one, figuring that part out, and that takes time and energy. Phase two is who's out there in the world that needs someone like you? Who's out there? And then phase three is networking. Yeah.
Sounds good. So, Liz, thank you very much for this presentation, and thanks to all the folks that were out there. I'm going to post a link in the chat to our post-event survey. It's a very short survey, and I would appreciate if folks would fill it out. It takes all of 2 minutes, but it's worth a lot more than that to me. Now, we mentioned before that Liz is willing to offer free coaching services to 3 individuals, and in order to get access to those services, you will need to connect with Liz.
Yeah.
Networking.
There you
So you
go.
can email Liz, Liz Mohler Business at gmail.com. And if you didn't get that, Liz Mohler Business at gmail.com, I will put it in the follow-up email. Send Liz an email. She'll send you a little evaluation and you fill that out. And then you potentially are one of there's 100 people in the call. So a few of the folks out there will get free coaching from Liz Mohler. Very much appreciated.
And there's also Saturday morning walk with a
That's
coach.
right.
And that
July 6th.
July 6th. So I love doing these. Oleg, you and I have been doing these since COVID started. And I look back at some of those older versions and I say to myself, well, a lot has changed and not a lot has changed. But and I
Yes.
always encourage people, go to the library. Librarians are great. There's great resources to help you. So we're here to help you.
Well, Liz, thank you very much again for the program, and to all the folks out there, we'll see you next time.